The other reason why we feel this particular technology around conversation insights could be a lot more useful is the way humans we consume information. Say for example, if I have an answer, or rather I need an answer, I have a question. Like the example I just gave you, hey, what is my sales last quarter, right? What do I do? It's like I get an answer. So that might trigger a follow-up question, right? I think, say for example, I'm looking at a number and say that, hey, can you show me the trend? Can we just go back 6 more months and then look at it? So and then it triggers a follow-up question. See, in fact, this is very similar to your knowledge assimilation cycle. In fact, as they say it, as you learn more, in fact, one clear indication of you becoming more knowledgeable is it providing you more questions and even answers, right? I think so that kind of, the way you consume information, right? You ask, start with a question, you ask it, that triggers a follow-up, and then, you get more answers. This kind of, pattern is very much possible with a conversation interface, or rather, conversation insights. I'll show you few examples very soon, right? So that's why, that's also one reason why we think, this is the way humans, we seek out information. So this kind of pattern is very much tuned to conversational way of, consuming information. So that's one of the reasons why, I think conversation insights could be, very much suited for, rather very much in tune with how humans, we normally would have consumed information, right? So the other thing is also, right, say for example, today in the absence of a computer, right, if I really have a question, I would go and ask somebody who really knows the answer. And then, I get the answer. Maybe, I have a follow-up. This is the way, I kind of engage in a conversation with somebody, right? So this, asking a trusted source, getting the answers, and then as I said, the question answer leading to more questions kind of happens in a cycle till we feel enlightened or till we feel we have all the answers. And then, we use those answers, to take actions or decision making, right? I think this is the way, humans kind of, we really assimilate information or then, become knowledgeable on something. So in fact, for many of you, who have worked on the business intelligence space, there is this area which has been very popular for some, called the service analytics, using tools like whether it is Power BI or Tableau or any of those tools, or even Excel for that matter, Microsoft Excel for that matter, right? Any data analyst would be continuously, just slicing and dicing data, looking at it from different perspectives across different dimensions, measures, till they get all the answers. And then they kind of put together these answers in a logical pattern, which helps them either use it for a presentation or decision making and all that, right? So now imagine if this is the way we've been consuming information. How could this be? It's. I'm sorry, is that a question? I hear some. Okay, good. So with this expectation, but look at what we have today, right? So some of the challenges. One is what we call as death by metrics. See, it's you take any reasonably sized organizations, that would definitely be, at least be more Excel sheets, more reports and dashboards than even the number of people who work there. I think, this is a very, very common reality in many of the organizations. There is one dashboard giving us the data. There is another report which gives us the data. None of them really match. And in addition to that, on top of it, people would still be crunching their own numbers in an Excel sheet and all that. I think this is a very, very common scenario in any of the organizations. So what we call is death by metrics, right? The second challenge, or rather, which is still very much true, is the information access is still too technical. Ranging from query language tools to trying to interpret different metrics in a dashboard and all that. I think many of them is not, especially for non-technical users or business users, there is still a good amount of complexity involved in, with respect to the technology part of it, right? Either you have to write some scripts or play around with spreadsheets. All these things are definitely very, very common across these days. It's not like where I just go and ask somebody, right? It is definitely not as seamless or simple as that, right? very, again, another very common pain point, which I'm sure, many of you, we could relate to. It's the painful delays. Say you have a dashboard, you have a scorecard or a report. If you need something, definitely you might be engaging a data analyst team, send them emails back and forth, till you really get the answers. There is a good amount of nothing is quote unquote what I would call as the pure self-service, right? This box which I have highlighted, asking a trusted source. It could be your data analyst team, or it could be somebody at the technology team, or it could even be yourself. Doing pretty much all the work yourself. Collecting the data till trying to get the insights out of a dashboard or a report. Definitely, it's a very very painful time delay. Which despite having access, or rather, having all the data, I feel the information access part is still extremely time consuming, and then it's a pain point across the organization, right? So this is the way I would like to sum up, just to set the context, in terms of the modern information access challenge. It's not about the data capture and store. I think the technology around that space, especially with increasing amount of digitalization and digital transformation efforts, I think every company, they have ton loads of data. We have the ability or the technology to capture very high velocity, very high volume data, right? Streaming, real time, near real time, batch, whatever it is. I think we have all the capabilities on extremely high level of maturity in those spaces around capture and store. But the challenge is more around on the consumption layer. The more the data you have, it's extremely difficult, for any common user to get access to it, in terms of the timeliness of the data, how soon is it available, how closer it is available for the decision makers, and all that. I think that's where we have pretty much the challenge is more on this space, right? Um, and the other thing is also something which is very very important, a concept which I just wanted to highlight. I'm sure many of you would even know this. It's about something called the findability and discoverability. The findability is you already have, it is you have a question, and then you're just trying to get an answer to that question. How easy it is for someone to locate the known data. And the discoverability is, especially with in a big data environment, right? I think sometimes even you don't even know, only when you look at the answer, I didn't even know this existed, right? I think those kind of stuff, how easy it is for a normal user to discover insights which they didn't even know existed, right? I think both these aspects are extremely important in the information access application, right? How does that really support the findability as well as the discoverability of the information, right? So what's the solution? I think that's a very, very quick summary on, just to set the context around the problem space. And then, before we get into our approach around, so finding a solution to this. Any questions so far? Maybe I'll just take a quick pause here. Any questions? Great. So let me jump into, with this context on the problem space, how are we, thinking of a solution aspect, right? So what we're really saying is when your users have momentary questions on data, right? Don't let them overwhelm with large reports. So we're saying, can they really get an answer, for that particular question? Just like how we would ask searching, but much more than that, which again, I'll just show you what do I really want, but much more than that, right? So why can't we just have them, just like, say, for example, if two human beings or two knowledge, if we are talking, how would I consume that? Or rather, how do I really talk to the other person? The way I ask questions, get information, I assimilate it. I think, can we really replicate an experience, if not exactly, at least, closer to that, right? Especially now we have technologies, as I said, because as I said, remember, the fundamental driver for the whatever the solution approach which I'm suggesting is conversational AI, which is to do with text, voice, as well as language understanding, people really conversing, right? So I think with that, the baseline technology, can we use those technologies to solve the problems, the information access problems, which I just mentioned, right? So can we just have them just ask how the way we would ask a fellow human being, right? So these are just like some examples. In fact, all these are questions, which we have implemented for some of our customer solutions, right? So something like, for a health insurance customer, rather than them, trying to interpret a dashboard or a report, can we let them ask questions like this? Hey, what is the incurred claim ratio on this particular plan on this? So this is the way, we ask questions, or rather, even when we are trying to consume, or rather looking at a metric, we have a question in our mind, I think something like this, and we are just trying to convert that in a form, we try to interpret a metric or a report and get the answer. That's what is really happening in our cognitive space, right? I think, we have only have questions, we're just trying to get answers, trying to interpretation. Rather, can we just ask the question this way, in a very simple interface, with examples like these, right? So I think this particular technology, I mean, it's really, I mean, I have given a statistics, from Gartner. More and more, there is an increasing usage of, search and natural language-based queries like these. They are becoming very common, or rather, one of the important component in business intelligence and analytics. I think that's what is really happening. So the solution, which I'm going to show in a very short period of time, it's more around these concepts, or rather it goes in this flavor. Um, Letting people, letting users ask questions in English to get answers. And then it's not just limited to a few questions, anything. I mean, if you have a data set, can the application really let the user ask any question and get the answer, right? So that's the very, very high level, example of it. Say, for example, to put it in perspective, right? So if this is the question I have in my mind, so I am a sales manager, I have a dashboard which gives me the performance metrics, right? So if my question is, hey, I have a team of sales reps, who are taking care of the business, which region is really doing well? I have rolled out a new product. I'm trying to find out, hey, how is this product really selling in the market, right? So I may have a dashboard like this, and I may try to get this answer to this particular question by trying to interpret this dashboard, right? I think that is one way of doing it. That's the most common way, which is prevalent today, right? Instead, can I replicate it with an experience like this, like how we interact with human beings, in a chat interface? Hey, which region is doing well? Can it really give me the pointed answer? Hey, it is the region West with the sale of this much amount of dollars, and then this is how it is doing. And what is interesting, or rather, or the next, this is where something that is similar to human experience becomes valuable. It's not just about providing an answer. Can they really go the extra mile and provide an insight? Hey, by the way, it's been trending down the last 6 months, or it has been going up, or rather, this is what is really contributing. That kind of insight is what really, which we normally find very common in a human experience. Can we really try to do something very similar, even with when we in our information access, right? I think that's the high level idea behind conversation insights. Can we really try to replicate, the what you see on the left, like how we are doing it today, trying to interpret dashboards or reports, trying to get an answer. Can I really replicate that, with a conversation interface, right?